If we take a look at the Dassamsha here, with this chart we've been looking at, the Leo Ascendant and the Rashi, when we look at the D10 chart, we see that we also have a Leo Ascendant. Within the Ascendant, we have Mars in good dignity and a great friend sign. That's going to show that this person is going to take proper initiative at the right time for their career. It's also going to show that they're going to be able to logically do what needs to be done to organize their career and set up their career in a way that functions in a logical manner. We see that the Lord of the 9th house within the D10 is in the first of personality. 9th house is again education, counsel, teaching. The ruler of the 3rd and the 10th house also impact the first of career. So that's Venus rules the 3rd and Venus rules the 10th. And through Rashi aspects, it is aspecting the first house within the D10. Once again, we see contracts coming into play with the 3rd house here. We also see writing being involved as part of the career. Now looking at the 10th house specifically in the D10, we have Mercury, which rules the 2nd and the 11th house. The 2nd house is a house of finances, how a person manages their money, their wealth, their resources. And the 11th house is also a house of financial gains. It's also a house of social involvements. So that's going to show that the career, as indicated within the birth chart, will deal with finances, whether it's managing people's money, as this woman does. We see that helping people manage their responsibilities, manage their finances, or manage their wealth through the estate planning. We have the ruler Saturn, which rules the 7th and the 6th house, Rashi aspecting the 10th. The 6th house deals with debts and delays, managing our debts and our delays. The 7th house deals with other people, and so this shows a profession where she's going to be interacting with other people. And the moon, Rashi aspects the 10th house, and the moon again rules the 12th house here, which is the house of loss. It speaks the idea of estate planning, the people that she works with, they had a loss within their family, and then the wealth of that loss, such as inheritance and so on, needs to be managed. So all of this is supported within the D10 chart. And so for getting an idea to further confirm what you see in the birth chart, just like we do in the birth chart, what we need to do is see what are the planets, what houses do they rule, and how do they Rashi aspect the 10th house within the Dassamsha, and how do they Rashi aspect the first house within the Dassamsha. If a planet rules a certain house, then the ideas or the specific indications of that house will be tied into the house that it Rashi aspects, as we've gone over. Planets that rule the 2nd house will deal with wealth. If that Rashi aspects the 10th, then something around wealth and resources, managing those things, for an example, will be part of the career. If it deals with the 3rd house, that does deal with writing and contracts, but that's also arts, entertainment, using one's hands, using one's skills. That can be further indicated if it's Rashi aspecting the 10th house. These are all just examples. But the idea is that if you understand your Rashi aspects, and you can see how the planets are Rashi aspecting the 1st and the 10th within the Dassamsha, that'll help give you some ideas, some confirmation about what you see within the birth chart. We also have to remember to use the natural indications of a planet in regards to their planetary aspects. And for our purposes now, in the Dassamsha and in the Navamsha, one of the main things that we want to just look at is what are the planets that are in, say, the 1st or the 10th house for the Dassamsha, or the planets in the 1st and the 9th within the Navamsha. Within the Dassamsha, any planets within the 1st house, the qualities of that planet, just the natural qualities, not paying attention to the houses that they rule, but just the qualities will influence how that career presents itself. If the sun is in the 1st house in the Dassamsha, that can give a person status, authority, make them a leader. If it's Mars, it can give the person ability to take initiative, to make good judgment, and to be logical within their career. And their career can have some of those qualities about it. If it's Mercury, that can give the person the ability to communicate, to manage and organize things efficiently and effectively. It can even bring in games and friendliness and the ability to relate to people. And if this is in the 1st house, it'll give that quality to the personality of the career. If it's within the 10th house of the Dassamsha, it'll give that quality to the actions that a person takes within their career, because that's what the 10th house represents. Not only that, but in the Dassamsha, each planet's qualities depending on the dignity, can show how strong that quality is within our career. For example, looking at this chart, we see that her sun is in a friend sign. So the sun representing consistency, status, authority, ability to manage things intelligently. That's going to be a noted trait within her ability to work within the world, her career. The moon. This is one's sense of self, adaptability, ability to nurture, and to be popular. Again, in this chart, the moon is in its own home in the Dassamsha. That's going to be very strong and something she's going to be known for in her career, which is excellent for people who are dealing with loss, which is excellent for people that she wants to counsel. Mars, the ability to be logical, to know what is correct and to do the right thing. Well, if you're going to have a lawyer, it's probably best if you have a lawyer who knows how to do the right thing. That way you don't get in trouble. So Mars knows the rules. He knows the right thing to do when it needs to be done. Mercury. This gives enjoyment through games, friendliness, ability to relate, ability to get the best deal. Her Mercury is in a great friend sign, just like her Mars in a great friend sign, which is going to show her communication, her ability to manage and organize things, to be friendly, to get the best deal out of all situations, is going to be part of her work, and it's going to be something, a skill set that she has very strongly. Jupiter's in a neutral sign. Jupiter is seeing the bigger picture and gain fulfillment and understanding from the greater scheme of things. It represents our beliefs and our philosophy and counsel. Well, overall, her Jupiter, by dignity, is in a neutral sign. So it's possible that her wisdom doesn't come through as clearly. And that's an important point. Wherever Jupiter is not in the best dignity, and neutral's okay, so we don't need to make a big deal about that. But when Jupiter's in enemy sign, great enemy, debilitation, that can show an area of life where the person, their counsel cannot be heard, or no one listens to them. If a person has Jupiter in great dignity within the Navamsha, then they might have good wisdom around relationships and path, and they can give good counsel and people listen to them. If it's debilitated or an enemy sign, they might have perfect knowledge, they might know the right thing to do with a good Mars, but no one's going to listen to them because their Jupiter is debilitated. So if you want to know those areas of life where you yourself have skills that you can share your wisdom, well, look at your Vargas and see where is Jupiter in a good dignity, and that'll show where people have a tendency to listen to you more because you do have good wisdom. Now Venus in this Dassamsha. Venus is in an enemy sign. Venus represents our decision-making ability, fulfillment from doing the right thing, adaptability, comfort, diplomacy, fairness. And so since this is in an enemy sign, this is not going to be something that she is well known for. There might be times when she's not diplomatic, and that can be spoken to as well with Mars. Having a good, strong Mars, Mars could care less about diplomacy. Mars is in a great friend sign on the ascendant, which can show this person gets right to the point, and that can hamper a person's diplomacy or ability to come across as though they seem caring. So the moon will help out with that. But overall, that Mars is stronger, which means that she's going to be a little more to the point, and people who need a little more coddling and need a little more flowery words around things might not necessarily get along with her too well. Saturn. Saturn is in a great enemy sign. This is suffering, debts, delays, ability to work hard, to stay focused, and to do what needs to be done, the little things. This is going to show that when it comes to career and work, there will be a tendency for her to be overwhelmed by work, by the tedious things that need to be done to make greatness happen. Again, because Saturn's in a great enemy sign. So she's got a lot of support, she's got a lot of good things within her chart, but the two planets that cause the most difficulty are Venus and are Saturn. Again, we need to overlay all of the positive and all of the negative to get the final result, and no one is just one way. Occasionally you might find that, but more than likely there's going to be this combination of different qualities within a person's birth chart and within the different areas of their life. Now, Rahu. Rahu acts like Saturn. Rahu is in the 6th house, and Rahu is considered to be in a great enemy sign since he acts like Saturn, who is in a great enemy sign. What does this mean? On one level, the 6th house, strangely enough, it represents the digestive system in the body. Within different Vargas, it can represent how we digest problems, how we deal with problems within that particular Varga. And since this is in the Varga of careers, it can show a person who probably doesn't digest them well, who ruminates over problems, who, when something goes wrong, can become adversarial, quick to pick a fight. And that can also show how this person deals with negative situations within her work environment. So we see that we've got Mars on the ascendant, which is the fighter anyway, and we see that she does have some difficulty with Venus being diplomacy and being able to make people feel comfortable. When we put this Mars in the first and this Rahu in the sixth, it can show a person who needs to learn how to develop that Venus, to not necessarily get so bent out of shape by when things go wrong. And it can show a person who needs to spend more time figuring out ways to digest the problems that they have in work, not take them so seriously, not internalize them, and not let them poison their ideas around their work. And sometimes when Rahu's in the sixth, especially in the area of career, dealing with career aspect in career, that can make a person sort of hold on to the problems, and so those things build up until they eventually don't want to do it anymore, or don't want to deal with it anymore. And that ties in with Saturn not being in great dignity, because Saturn, he understands that things happen, that problems come up, that things go wrong, and when Saturn is strong, he can say, okay, that's fine, but there are all these good things. When Saturn is weak, he can focus too much on those negative things, and since Rahu acts like Saturn, it can support that within a person's chart. K2 is in the 12th. K2 acts like the moon, which is also in the 12th with it, and the moon is in its own home. K2 is the planet of liberation, which is going to show that ultimately this person will find surrender, this person will find peace, and this person will be able to move through those problems. So that's the result of the problems. The 12th house is the result of one's enemies. And with K2 here in a good dignity, it can show that one's enemies, the problems caused by one's enemies dissipate. So through surrender, through rising above the situations and not getting so petty, K2 is activated. Through being adaptable, which is like the moon, K2 is activated, and these problems dissolve. And within the Dassamsha, let's also look at the two primary important planets, which are the Sun and Saturn. Well, we see that Saturn is in the 12th house, which is the house of loss, and we see that Saturn is also in a great enemy sign, which is going to show that this Saturn, as we mentioned, will get in the way of this person achieving or experiencing the greatness that they hope to achieve within their work and within their career. When we look to the Sun within the Dassamsha, we see that it is in a friend sign, and it is in the 11th house. And the 11th house it's the house of titles, it's what we derive from our profession, the achievement that we can reach. And so the Sun, representing the body of this profession, representing the first house here, shows that ultimately the person will find fulfillment within their work, will find the level of status that they're comfortable with, even though Saturn's not going to propel them or give them the ability to really do the tediousness and the hard work to make it even better. So the Sun is going to give titles, they will be happy with the titles, they will give a sense of fulfillment, like they have achieved their desires and their goals. And that all comes from just the Sun being in good dignity there. And since Saturn is not in the best dignity, and it's in the 12th house within the Dassamsha, it'll show that when she goes into the Dasha period of Saturn, that there will be pulling away from her, what I might consider to be her authentic career, and there'll be working more behind the scenes. And she happens to be in a Saturn Dasha now, and this is when she started getting more involved in her healing work, pulling away from the legality of her profession and the lawyer aspect of her profession. Personally, I think that might be more of her strength, so I see her getting back around to that, potentially when she goes into the Mercury period, because within the Dassamsha, Mercury's in the 10th house, and Mercury strongly triggers the 10th house, because any planet in the 10th triggers that chart, and Mercury happens to be in good dignity. So for now, she's taking a little side route. She's exploring other options for herself within her career. Ultimately, though, I think she probably will return to some sort of teaching or some sort of legal profession. But for now, she's exploring the behind-the-scenes work, the healing work, which is indicated within her chart, but not necessarily the strongest aspect from what I can see.